All right, so we're gonna start building this thing. We got wings that need control surfaces, okay? Control surfaces, they're made up, and I don't know how they go. So we have to figure it out from looking at the drawings and stuff. Looks like this is actually on the top. So we're gonna flip whatever wing I happen to grab, which happens to be the left wing. We're gonna lay it down like this and then see, yeah, looks like I got lucky on that and grabbed the right one. This one's a little bit more ambiguous. I assume that's right. Does that look right to you? Looks right to me.
Looks right.
Now we can flip it over and see if it's still correct. Okay, so this would flip over and this would flip over. Yep, okay, so you have markings on either side. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is stuff those in, and then we're gonna hinge them. Okay, so we're just kinda find the opening and just kind of wiggle back and forth so we can get them in there. Of course, the cuts are not perfect. They're close, but not perfect. And I've never quite understood this. If you're gonna jig up a model and make a model without the parts being exactly perfect, it does make it a little bit challenging for the builder, for the end builder. I've had some people tell me that we make too big a gap here, and I don't really agree. I think I want to have clearance. I want it to be able to move without problems. So some of you guys want to have that joint totally tight. That's fine. Go for it. I'm going to make mine flush here is what I'm doing. Then I'm going to come over here and do this, and then I'm going to use this Bob Smith Industries. It's just like a thin CA. So if you look in the side of the bottle here, it's kind of watery. I keep them in bags. If you show them over here, these bags come out of a place in our basement where it's, you know, dark and cool and stuff, and it sort of works. It's not perfect, and no, I'm not putting them in the fridge. I've had a million people tell me that. I've tried it. It's never worked. Not for me, because the whole idea is to keep them dry, and in our case, there must be just too much moisture in the fridges that I have been cohabitating with my glue. Some of you guys have had good luck with that. That's great. Maybe a freezer would be better. I don't know. But the idea is the viscosity always gets worse over time, even if you're careful about the way you open it. Okay, so I'm paying attention to two details. I'm paying attention to the gap here and the gap here so that it's even from here to here. But also I want this to be even to that so it looks nice. Okay? And then I want this flush here where my thumb is. I'd like those to be even if I can make them, but that's the least critical part, okay? I feel like that's pretty good. Now I'm gonna make sure I have play up and down. I'm satisfied with that, and I'm gonna glue it. I'm not gonna overthink this today, just because I've built dancing wings planes before, and sometimes it's like, you know, it's a really good experience and everything goes super fancy. It's just a lot of steps. But in this case, I have a strong suspicion this is gonna be a very high quality, very good flying plane, just based on one stat, and that is how light this thing is. So I'm excited to see it fly. I think it's gonna be a winner. If I didn't think it was gonna be a winner, I wouldn't even build it. But I do think this is gonna be good. But we are going a little bit out on a limb because the last dancing wings we built, I wasn't super excited about it. Well, actually, the last one we built, it was a terrible build, and then it flew good. Surprised us both.
Yeah.
But then the one before that, which happened to be like almost exactly the same time frame, was a huge, huge, huge build, and it just didn't turn out very good, I didn't think. But then you guys really liked it on YouTube, so whatever, I suppose. I just was surprised how much people took to it, the storch. Mm-hmm. All right, so if you're watching this build, you've probably seen our builds. They're long. We do long format videos here on Brian Phillips RC. If you're new to the channel and you didn't already know that, we do long format videos, and now you know that. That means that we show as much or the entire build, depending on what type of build it is. There are limitations because of our family and because of the camera crew and things like this. You need to not block the light like that. Come over here if you can. Thank you. And so we work together. We try to film as many details as we can so you guys can follow along. If it's something you're into, where you've maybe done this before and you've got an idea of what you're looking at, some of these steps might be a little bit redundant, but you might enjoy watching me struggle with it. or you might just need a little bit of help as you're doing it yourself. I don't claim to be some expert builder here at all, so don't hear what I'm not saying. I do enjoy building. We do build a lot of airplanes. But the thing is, there are people that spend a lot more time on these things. They get them just really pristine. So, okay, so that's the thin CA that's gonna work into the hinges. So really all I need to do now is just let that work and kind of just wick into the joint, okay? Now, after a few minutes, I usually come back and just kind of tug on them and see if they move. If they move, then that means that the glue didn't wick in properly. If you buy a brand new bottle of this stuff, then it will wick in and it will work fine. If you have 2 or 3 year old stuff, sometimes it doesn't work so good. If you try to go to like a medium CA instead of a thin CA, it will be very hard. You'll have to coat it and then stuff it in. It's hard and a lot of it wipes off when it goes in because that's a gap filling product. Okay, so there you go. So we're gonna keep moving. So I think what I wanna do on this is, just for the sake of not dripping onto the counter, I'm just gonna kind of sit it over the sink here. We're gonna do the other wing, same exact process. Really simple process, by the way. So I think what we'll do is we'll pause because these 4K videos are huge. All right, so we got the other side done. Nothing really to it. We're gonna come back to the first ones we glued. It's been, what, like 2 or 3 minutes probably? Yes. While we just glued the other side. Nothing too extraordinary. We don't clip out steps except for when they're exactly redundant in the long format. It's just our video files get so huge that we can't upload them. They're so big. And you do have limits on YouTube, we've learned. Okay, so the next step, of course, is to cut the holes, which ours came pre-cut. I don't know if yours will for the servos. And it says to basically go ahead and start pulling the wires through, which is fine. It looks like you need an extension cord for this one, but not necessarily for this one. So let's go ahead and just check that and see how that's gonna work. It did come with 2 extension cords. They're not super long. I found that sometimes in the dancing wings, the wiring is definitely an afterthought, and that's not uncommon in ARF planes. So you may need to provide a longer extension cord depending on how you set up your plane, okay? So in our case, we'll try what comes with it, and if it doesn't work, we'll take it out and redo it, okay? So this, it's got oil on it. So I'm gonna wipe it down. I was hoping there'd be a label on there, but there isn't a label. I don't know what size the servo is, but it probably speaks to it on this page. 17 gram. 17 gram Metal Gear servos, which is nice. They've always had really good servos, that's for sure. Okay, so that wire is you know, amply long to reach out of the wing, so that's good. That'll be enough to get out of the wing. There's supposed to be a hole here too. See that hole? That's where the wire's supposed to exit. Because this wing will butt up to the other wing, and you gotta have your wires come out somewhere.
Okay.
So I'm not really sure why they left that uncut, but they did. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna think about this for 2 seconds. Yeah, there's no other escape strategy for those wires. So I think we're stuck cutting this. Now this is gonna be inside of the wing, so it's not like it's a visible area. So I'm gonna be just super careful. I'm just gonna cut and then just, you know, just kind of go around the edge. It's not anything too super fancy here because this is gonna be covered up from the outside. And that stuff is heat sensitive, so if you know, take a lighter to it, that'll shrink back a little bit too if you want to make that hole cleaner. It shouldn't matter, but just in case, depending on your analness level. So there's 2 servos in each wing, one for the flap, one for the aileron. And I have, let's see if they actually show us a detail on how we're supposed to set this up. See, they have a piece of string there. And it looks like the furthest one, pull it through, and then so on and so forth. Okay, so really, but again, I'm still looking for a detail that shows what direction to put the servo, which it doesn't look like we have that on this page. So we have to go to the next page. to pick it up. It looks like they want the servo. Of course, this picture doesn't tell you what direction it's supposed to be. There, finally. That's where they want it. So they want the control horn to be toward the control surface like this, okay? At least that's what this shows. And that also confirms that for us doubly. And they're using this long arm like this. I don't know if there's really any significance to that. I don't know why you would use both. You know, you could just use the single. I think it's the same length. Let's check. They used a plastic gear servo in the picture too, so I'm not super duper concerned about that. But as you can see, this has a longer arm on it than the single, yeah. So it looks like they want them in. Of course, the detail is not really that critically clear. Does it say?
I wonder if it says in that paragraph.
I'm gonna use the long one then, because it doesn't say. All right, so this is gonna be on here like this. Now we could hook up servo signal tester to center these, but we're not, you know, we're not even gonna put the screws in yet. And then this has a single grommet style bushing setup. So this actually slips through here like this. And then I had somebody telling me I did it wrong on one of the builds. I think it's supposed to actually go, I can't remember which way it's supposed to go. But my understanding was it was supposed to go the other way, but then this is actually the right way. And then that allows this to have a little bit of play on it. I would always build them the other way, but I remember somebody explaining that that was actually backward. But there's no detail again here to actually, you know, clarify that. But you see what I'm talking about? This thing here.
You would normally put that in from the top.
I'd put it in from the top, but the thing is it does kind of make sense because the screw's gonna come in there and hit that. And then that gives a bearing surface up against the wing. So I don't know. Again, it probably doesn't really make a huge difference one way or the other, but it's gonna go in just like that, okay? And then these are self-tapping screws. Looks like they're appropriately sized and everything, which is good. And then this is, they actually give us 2 different screws. I don't know why they gave us 2 different style screws. Maybe that was just a gaff on their part, I'm not sure. But I'm gonna go ahead and throw that in there. It's a machine style screw. As you can see, I'm continuing to gather more and more and more and more tools as this build continues. The camera crew is looking at me like, what have you gotten us into again? Yes, that's right, I got us into this. So we're gonna use the extension cord on this one. And we'll just plug that in real simple. Black to brown, white to orange, okay? Really simple, nothing fancy there. Now, if you're concerned this is gonna come undone inside the wing, this would be a good time to glue it together. Okay, now you can glue this together a million different ways. You can tape it together a million different ways. There's also extension cables that have clips on them, which I would prefer in an inside the wing kind of application. But I think on this one, just because I'm going to be lazy, I'm just gonna go ahead and do a little drip of CA. And yes, that's all I'm gonna do. Just a little drip of CA because to be honest, I don't think it's gonna even be a factor and I'm not super worried about it. But that'll at least give us a little bit of a bite. And then yes, I'm getting more tools. Yes, I keep collecting more tools. Just 2 minutes ago, there was like no tools out. Now there's more. Why tape and glue? Because glue takes a second to set up, whereas tape will hold right away. And I'm impatient, plus we're filming, okay? So there, that's all I'm gonna do. It's not like rocket science here, except if you would mount a rocket engine to this, then it would actually be rocket science. So now that that's through, we can go ahead and use our forceps, which I don't, I'm looking for the rope. I see the rope. Do you want to show them the rope inside that hole there while I grab forceps?
Where is it? Oh, there, I see it.
So we have forceps here. Hemostats, forceps. So if you were doing surgery, you could clamp off veins, arteries, or whatever. But in our case, we're just gonna build a model airplane and not save a life. Yet. depends on how the build goes.
Yeah. Can you use those? Are those self-administering?
Okay, so I'm gonna take all these pieces from all the millions of servos, and just a tip. When you're building a model airplane like this, there's a good possibility that at some point you're gonna screw something up. So when you need to come back to it and find a part, if you put a bag together with all the parts in it, you can dig that one kit out instead of digging out an individual component. It's really hard to do that after a couple of months. Same thing with this screw. I don't know why that screw's in there. I don't know what it does. It almost looks to be a mistake to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop that in there as well. So those are the extra unused pieces. All right, so did you ever find the part there, camera crew? Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's a piece that's taped to this rib here. So I'm gonna grab that. Just got a little bit of tape on there. And to be honest, this is actually a really nice, helpful tool right here, having this inside of there, because you don't always have that. So we're gonna grab that out, and I'm just gonna go over here and see what I'm doing. I'm hanging on to the other side just so it doesn't pull through. Oh, good Lord, the extra 1/4 inch would have, there we go. So I held it, and then I pulled out a little bit of a knot. Okay. So now I suppose there's a million different ways to skin this cat at this point, but I'm gonna take my tape off and replace it with new, fresh tape. Should be a relatively easy process. We'll just kind of go around like this, hold that there, and then tape it. Again, this is not a permanent thing. It's just enough to get it through the holes. It should actually be a pretty easy thing. Now, I'm just gonna go ahead and pull and run that through. Now, when we get to about the midpoint, then I'll pick up the other one. Okay, so there's the other, see, there's the hole. Okay, so now at this point, I can go and grab this, hold this side of the string. I'm gonna pull this through. And then this is just gonna give me easy access. I'm just pulling on the wire side, not the string side. And if in doubt, put that up here so you don't accidentally pull on it. Okay. Then when we're done, we'll feed both of them through to the rest of the end of the wing. Okay, then this is fully assembled and ready to be screwed in. So we're just gonna go ahead and screw it in. We're not gonna rocket science this too much. My objective on this build is to, okay, now that screw does not fit through that hole very well. See that? There it goes. There it goes. Okay, I'm not even gonna pre-drill a hole. I'm just gonna literally self-tap it in there. And it still hasn't bit through the material. And that's why I'm showing you what it's like if you don't pre-drill a hole, okay? Because sometimes it's better if you don't pre-drill a hole, and sometimes it's way worse. It depends on the material they use for that wing rib, and I am not familiar with what it is. I assume it's probably a balsa wood spar. Yep, that went pretty smooth. Okay, cool. So I would recommend not pre-drilling that hole. They showed, I think they showed, did they show pre-drilling? If in any doubt, take your knife, after you've gone through and struck the material that it's gonna hit, you can take your X-Acto knife and just dig the first little bit of the hole. Because I want all that material. Balsa wood is so porous that, you know, like when you push in, imagine the head of the screw coming in, it's just gonna displace all that product. So it's not as likely to split, especially when it's glued together in a bunch of spots all around here. Okay, oops, I just tried to screw the wrong hole. Hate it when that happens. Man, that's a good bite at least. I'm very happy about that part. Okay, feels pretty solid, okay? Haven't added hardly any weight, which is nice. 17 grams to be specific, would be an approximation there. All right, so then the other servo, and we're gonna do the same thing we did on the last wing. We'll just get this one built up, and then we'll just pause and copy it on the other side. If we run into problems, we'll share, but I'm kind of guessing we won't. It's a pretty simple setup. Okay, so we're gonna take out the long style here. Remember, these aren't centered, so we don't even really care. We're gonna have to undo one screw when we get to that point, but at least we're not tripping over it and we're not losing it. So let's talk about these two different styles of screws here, guys. This is a machine screw, very tight thread. This is coarse thread. This is what's gonna actually go in to here. And then that's gonna retain your control arm, just like this. All right, so we got that screw in there, and we have to do the same thing with these grommets. These things just give a little bit of squish, a little bit of play, and a little bit of give. So like if there's a little bit of binding here, you're gonna have just a little bit of movement before it breaks things. So it's definitely worth using if you can get away with it. Sometimes people leave these out because it just saves a little bit of weight. Sometimes people insist on having 4 of them, but then I feel like it's sort of self-defeating at that point. Okay. All right, so there we go. And then same thing like before, we're gonna basically pull this through. So we'll just grab a small little bit of tape. And we're just gonna add to what we've already taped. So if you guys like the long format videos, let us know in the comments below. We know that a lot of you guys really enjoy the long format videos. When we do, you know, there's a million different people you could watch on YouTube doing airplanes, radio controlled airplanes in particular. Of course, I love it. And that's not to take anything away from the other people that do this. On YouTube, there's a big world out there, lots of room for different opinions and thoughts and things. But when you come to Brian Phillips RC, you can usually see that we end up putting quite a bit of effort into sharing the whole experience with you. And some of you might not like that. So for those of you that don't like it, we apologize. We hope that you can still get some value out of little bits and pieces of these builds. We understand most of you aren't going to watch the entire thing, and that makes perfect sense. Okay, so good length. Worked out pretty good. There's a little excess in here. I'm going to leave that right where it is, okay? You'll be able to easily identify which one's which now because the Futaba color code is going to be for here, and then the Hextronics color code for be here. Okay, or JR Hextronics, whatever. Futaba, red, black, white. Hextronics JR would be the orange, red, brown. So then of course JR was, I believe JR was acquired by Horizon at some point. Might have been part of the acquisition at Tower, I don't know. I've been in the hobby long enough to really understand all the hierarchy of everything like that. Okay, so we're just gonna do this without pre-drilling again because that worked so good on the first set. We built a lot of planes and this so far is going pretty smooth. From Dancing Wings, they make a good plane, you just have to be committed to a longer build. There's a lot of steps, a lot of pieces, and kind of like a Hangar 9 sort of feel. Okay, so obviously that string can be completely discarded at this point. You can just undo your tape and undo the plugs. And I would recommend getting that tape off of there sooner than later because that'll help keep that residue from making a big mess on your connectors. So show the people outside, this is why we're filming inside today. We've had quite the springy couple of days, which is actually very good. Our grass is doing great this year. But unfortunately, the grass is doing great and my zero turn is broken because when I changed the oil last season, I knocked loose a hydraulic line and I didn't realize it. So when I pulled it out to go mow for the first of the season, the hydraulic oil had spilled all the way down to a side spout, not the bottom spout, thank goodness. So I didn't blow up the hydraulics. But then I put the wrong type of hydraulic oil in. Yay, don't do that. Then I had to drain it, put it all back in, and then I realized I smoked the drivetrain belt because it was slipping. I'm like, why do I stop on hills? This is not normal. Usually I can go like 9 miles an hour and launch off like a ramp. Not this year. There you have it, guys. Okay, so the next step, so as you can see with the rain, we're gonna be building today. Next step, we're gonna replicate this exact setup on the other wing and we'll be right back when that's done. All right, so we got the servos mounted on both wings. One thing I forgot to show, so I'm gonna show it now. We've got the wires here. So you do have to feed these wires through that little hole there. I forgot to do it on camera on the other one, so we'll show it on this one. And then kind of the same thing here, remembering that the ailerons are gonna be the Futaba color code because they're the outboard aileron. The inboard flap is just the direct connection to the servo itself. So they have pretty good lengths on all these leads, which is nice. I'm not even gonna worry about labeling them at this point, but at some point we may need to label them. This should be pretty easy to see. I don't know if the receiver is gonna mount to the wing because there's so much stuff going on the wing, or if it's gonna be mounted inside. The wing is removable. And so sometimes if you have a removable wing on a plane, it makes sense to have the receiver on there. It just depends on the setup of the plane, because we're only gonna have a rudder, an elevator, and throttle hooked up from the plane. And we're gonna have 4 wires hooked up on the wing. So just a thought. Anyway, so you can see we got plenty of length here, which is good. And that should reach in there, but you gotta remember, like, this distance goes away quick when you have the wing off of the aircraft. So just a thought. Anyway, we've got the Spectrum XBC battery checker, which is also a servo signal tester, which is really nice. Or servo signal generator. We've got a Gen 2 Smart Pack 3S 2200. Not that there's anything special about that. It's not even really technically charged. So actually it is sort of. Okay, so we're gonna click and we're gonna go. I'm gonna show you this time so you can see. So it comes on, I'm gonna click once. I'm gonna go to servo test and start. And then basically what I'm gonna do is center these, because the next thing we have to do is mount the servo control horns and all that. So we're gonna plug this in. It's labeled minus is away from you, plus is in the center, and then signal is toward my belly. So I'm just gonna hit that and then, okay, double tap, and it'll go into a sweep. Just kind of cool. Okay, so now the other thing you can do is, if you want to test more than one at a time, you can Y cable, but just keep in mind, there's only so much that you can draw, okay? I believe we have the splines in the position where these things are centered as good as we can center them. You'll note that they're not perfectly centered. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be perfectly centered. The spline position could be either here or probably here, okay? But if we go from here to here, we're way closer to the aileron. I want to be as 90 degrees as possible, okay? So now the next thing we have to do, now that they're both centered, I'm gonna just leave that on. We have to get into this little bag of tricks here, which has the control horns, okay? These ones are gonna be, technically you can glue and screw them if you want, but you're gluing to a control surface that's basically covered in film, so it's not that strong. What I'm doing is I'm looking at these through the window. That doesn't work, so I'm gonna do it through the light. You can see where there's a reinforcement here, and then there's a reinforcement here, okay? So the reinforcement's where we wanna hit. So you can confirm that. I'm gonna double check that again. Yeah, so we have reinforcement here and reinforcement here. So I don't know if you guys could see that very good, but you could tell there's something to screw into, okay? They're suggesting drilling a pre-drilled hole. I'm gonna try it without, and you guys can learn from my mistake if it's not correct. But you can tell it's obviously on the inboard portion of the control arm. They're wanting us to use the outermost hole here, and the outermost hole on the control arm assembly, okay? So that's gonna be like right there, in line. And there's lots of lines. You can see where the ribs are in person, probably not on camera, but I can definitely see what's going on there. So it shouldn't be too big of a deal. Okay, so I'm gonna start with just side cutters because it's easy. And I'm gonna just come in here and cut that, just to make it super simple. Then I'm gonna take and protect my fingers, and I'm just gonna trim this, get that little bit up off of there. Okay, so the same kind of scenario here. What we're gonna do is we'll do one wing, and then we'll pause, do the second wing off camera, just to make it a little easier on us as we're filming and to shorten the duration of the video. Otherwise the video just gets so long with these builds. Okay, so you see all these screws are the same, which is good. They come with lots of hardware. And I like it when you don't have to put a backer plate on these, but I don't know yet for sure if that's gonna be true. Okay, so we have these rods here. which are going to come down from here. Now, why am I sticking these in now? Well, because I want to see how everything fits, and then I have to recenter that servo because I just moved it. So I always like to keep these as tight as possible without making it impossible to work with, okay? So you can see that's really wanting to hold that thing up. You see that? We may have to bend that a little bit, but that's fine. We'll just leave it intact for now. Because you see what I'm talking about, that little pressure? I don't like that pressure. It's gonna load that servo a little bit. So in that case, let's go ahead and plug, this is the outboard, the inboard rather, flap. So we'll just plug the flap in. So you can tell it's centered because I click and that'll keep and maintain that centered position for us while working, okay? So now then we use this assembly and you're like, why are you reverse engineering all this stuff, Brian? Because see this? This just makes it easier. You know it's gonna all fit together then. Okay, so unscrewed that. I'm just gonna tighten that set screw just real loosely. Not tight like I'm trying to keep it, just tight like I want it to not fall apart while I'm working on it. Okay, so this has already been trimmed here. I feel like we need a little bit more trim. Just sanding it with that little spot on the handle. There you go, that's good enough. Ooh, and there's a bump down here. See if I can get that with my fingernail. Okay, so then there's a washer and a retainer nut. So I'm just gonna unscrew that, take one of the washers off, not both. Drop that on the ground there, table, whatever you wanna call this. Then I'm gonna see if that'll go through, which as you can see, it's a little bit tight, so I don't know if it's gonna go, but I'm gonna try to thread it on just to make life easy for myself. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. If you use a drill bit, you're committed to that drill bit, okay? But if you take and chuck this into your drill chuck, like this, watch this. You know for sure it's gonna be the right size. See that, now it's free. Okay. So now all I have to do is just get that kind of back to square. See, that stuff just doesn't melt. You see how much I spun that and it just barely changed the shape or size of it. Okay, so we'll just unscrew that. Slip this in. Now remember, our objective here is to just get alignment as perfect as we can. Understanding that we have backer here that we want to try to hit. So I'm feeling with my fingers and I'm just sliding everything around to where it feels like it's solid. And again, this is something that a Chinese factory could probably handle and do a better job than I can. So I always prefer them to do this if at all possible. Now the reason I'm gonna mark my holes is because I don't think I can hold all this crap together in the same spot while this is happening, okay? So, which is not the way I had hoped to do it. So I've got one little mark made. All right, so I'm gonna take this, see if I can do this still. Okay, so that's pushed through. I can see my little detent, it's very subtle, okay? Million little moving parts makes it hard. Okay, you do not need to pre-drill that. That would be a big mistake. The only thing I might be doing wrong there is I might be a little bit far out. How do they draw it? I feel like I should be closer to the hinge surface. I feel like this is not going to reach far enough out in advance that even if I go here, I'm still pretty far from the hinge point because you do want this up by the hinge point for proper throws. The thing that's bad about that is when it reaches out in front of the hinge point, then it's going to run into the plane. It's going to run into itself.
I feel like yours looks similar.
It looks the way they did it, but the thing is, I guess I'm just not a huge fan of the way they did it. Also, I need a big screwdriver. I don't know why, but these screws are not really doing great with this small precision screwdriver, so I'm going to use a big screwdriver. Yep, the big screwdriver works fine. Very strange.
You just needed some more tools.
Yeah, I didn't have enough out. Okay, so the next thing I got to do is I got to get a second screw in once I've tested the alignment. I'm going to do a sweep. Now, the other thing you can do during this sweep is look right here, guys. That's going to tell you when you're overloading. You see that peak? Okay, so guys, what I was trying to show you, I got interrupted by a phone call there. See that? What you can do is you can walk to a point. See how it says 68 milliamps? See, it's 102. That's a lot of current there, guys. I feel like it's really having to work hard to do this maneuver. I don't know why it's working so hard. Same thing here. I feel like there's an alignment issue. I mean, it could just be the servo, it just takes a lot of juice. But if you double tap, it'll sweep. See where it gets higher? So what you can do is you can now study this closely. And you can say, where is it giving us problems? It's giving us problems at the end of the sweep, okay? The other thing too is you can sit here and look at this control arm and you can kind of center things up a little bit if you want to try to center things up a little bit. I think I know where the problem is. So it goes slow enough you can actually do it while it's moving sometimes. Okay, so I'll loosen this just a hair. Let it get aligned a little bit better and then retighten. That feels a little bit better. So you can tell there's just a little bit of a deviant in this angle here. So if you look at this, you can tell it's kind of bending the rod a little bit. You see that? So I don't like that at all. I feel like this might need to go on the other side, but that's not the way they showed it, is it? I can't tell from that picture. Yeah, it looks like maybe it's on the inside. That does not necessarily relate to this, so let's see, that's on the inside. I'm on the inside too, aren't I? Yeah, I just happens to be the opposite wing. So what I want to do is I want to basically stop this, click. This tool is really useful. If you're getting this just to test batteries, then you're missing out on one of the biggest features this thing has on it. So I'm going to try something different here. I'm going to actually take this out. I'll unscrew this screw, which of course needs like a number 1 or 2 screw. All right, so, sorry guys, got interrupted again. We had a follow-up. We're kind of dealing with our electric company we've talked about. We've been working through the details of trying to get our primary service put underground. And if anybody in the audience has ever done that, you'll understand it's not a small thing. So, okay, so I feel like this hole is gonna give us problems here. You know, I just don't feel like it's got enough clearance. You see how it's wanting to spring up on us? I don't know if this would work, but I'm wondering if I could go under and enter from the bottom there. Let's try just to see how terrible it is. Because we already know we're hooked up, we're centered. Okay, so I'll just kind of lift the control arm off and we'll see. And if you have a problem with this, you can actually flip it around and get a get out of jail free card there. Okay, so we'll try that. It does make it a little bit more tedious, and it's going to be harder to get off of there once your plane is built, but you know what? It's not that big a deal. The wing is pretty much fully assembled at this moment. Okay, so, and I'm just pushing on the trailing edge of the wing like this so that I can have a flat surface, just to make sure everything is in alignment. These are just little details. It's not like you have to do it this way or that. It's just nice when it's powered up because you don't have to worry about it walking off of its home position. I feel like this is going to be easier on the mechanism. It's going to be less electrical load. And if you make less electrical load, make no mistake, it will make your plane survive better. Okay, let's go into a sweep. Whenever it changes direction, its load's heavy. You see that, how it goes like 136? Mm-hmm. Are you showing this?
Yeah, I'm showing both.
Okay.
You can read it.
Good.
Yep.
Because I think what's going on here is that the instructions call for a square attachment point. The problem is if you're perfectly square here, then as this sweeps, your geometry changes because you become a triangle as it's sweeping. You guys follow that? I hope you do. And that's why everybody's going to ball links on stuff like this, because the ball links make up for that to a degree. I almost wonder if we should put a bend in this. I know some of you guys are going to cringe when you hear me say that. But what's going to happen is if this is bent just a little bit, then it can actually make up for some of that indisparity as it sweeps. The other option is we can screw this in at the slight angle that it's at right now, which is like this instead of like this. So it goes to the extreme, and then this piece actually flexes a little bit with every stroke, which just doesn't seem like it's going to have a lot of longevity to it. Better to figure this out now than on the 8th one we do, or 7th one. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm just going to let that work its way out like that. I do feel like there's a little bit less, busyness with that thing not going up in the air. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to walk this out, see if I can we're just going to try it from the other side and see how it feels. I am actually screwing it out. You wouldn't have to necessarily screw it out if you pre-drilled the hole. Thank you. Good catch. Okay, you guys see what I'm doing here. I'm sure you understand kind of what I'm going through. If you've ever built an ARF, these are the types of decisions that you don't have to make on bind and flies. So if you're a brand new pilot and you're thinking, you know what, that plane is sharp, Brian. I want to start my flying career with that plane. Just do yourself a favor and don't. Mm-hmm. Get a bind and fly, get something real easy. Okay, now I'm just going to hold this right here. You see how I got my fingers aligning it? Look how nice and clean that is there. What I'm looking at is the wiggle. I'm looking at the disparity. Looks like we got about a 2 millimeter swing from here to here. So it's just minor, real minor. Okay. I feel like that is so much less loading on everything. And I feel like it splits the difference a lot better, don't you?
Well, when you tighten it down, are we going to keep in that same? Because right now the range is really good.
Yeah, I think so too. The other thing is the instructions call for it to be square, so I'm just going to go ahead and screw it in because I think we're splitting hairs at this point.
Probably.
We're just splitting hairs.
I mean, we don't typically overthink things.
Not at all. Not even a little bit. Okay, so tight like a tiger. And then this one here, I'm going to actually reach in like this. Yeah, that's going to be awkward. It's like when you get the sprinkler going, you're trying to wait to not get sprayed. Okay, so we'll put that down there. So guys, what we'll do is actually, you know what we'll probably do? We'll probably just go ahead and set this one up and then we'll just do 3 of them off. Yeah. I mean, it's the exact same process on the wing. You're just basically getting alignment. If I run into problems, we'll obviously share that. But I just want to show you one other tip that I should be doing that I'm not, and that is, let's just show you this because I'm probably going to do this off camera on this one too. So once this is tight, if you really want to get the best crack at success, that is really good bite, guys. Really good bite. And let's show you from the other side. Mm-hmm. Nothing through the top. That's beautiful. So far, this is going pretty smooth. I'm just getting ready to be disappointed at some point because I'm blocking that completely with my hand. I wonder if we could go to the other side for better angle. I don't know. You know best usually. See this? This is what I'm gonna do. I've now pulled that out with my pre-drilled hole. I'm gonna take and put one drip of CA. This is medium CA, okay? This is gonna be kind of like Loctite, okay? You guys see that? Mm-hmm. Okay, not supposed to be anything big and fancy there. Now, this is not to glue it in the hole, it's to thread glue into the threads of the hole. And what that's gonna do is then the first time you back it off, you've got now a glued threaded pocket to receive the screw. So it gives you a little bit better serviceability, and that's gonna go in there and work with the balsa wood. It just kind of gives you a little bit better pocket. So let's just finish this one off. We'll do all three, and then we'll do, like we said, we'll pause, we'll get the other ones on the same wing surfaces done, and then we'll come back up where we have to do a little bit more assembly with some carbon fiber spar insertations, and then some fuselage adapters. There's like some pins that go on the front of the wing. Mm-hmm. We're gonna do that after we're done building this. This is an important step, guys. You got to make sure that your wing is going to work right. This is the performance plane, from what I understand, or they call it's a Stick 14 Sports airplane. Sports. I really like the colors better than the box suggested. I feel like this green is brighter and more exciting and more vivid than the lime.
Yeah, it's a lighter limey green on the box.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I do.
Which, I mean, I guess, you know, some people are going to prefer the lime green over the more vivid green, more neon green. Nice and tight. None of these have stripped yet, which is good. Mm-hmm. That is not something we usually see. Sometimes you'll have a few that just you don't have anything to hang on to, like you're hitting just covering, mm-hmm. which we ran into that a lot on the PT-17 around where the wheel, the bogies ran into the body of the plane. Okay, so now let's come back to assembly of this thing. This is where we're gonna kind of commit to this positioning. Okay, so I'll actually screw this in first, just kind of holding this out of the way so I don't accidentally get stabbed. I could stop it from running, but that would take like an extra 1 second. I'm actually gonna back it off just a little bit. Can't remember, on the backstroke, not the forward stroke. Ooh, because it can rip the control surface off. Like that. You guys see what I just did there? That's why I demonstrate what not to do by doing it for you. So I left a little bit of slop in there to see if that helps or hurts. Okay, now this is the kind of retaining nut that doesn't have any, you have to use like needle nose or your fingers, and that's fine. I just don't know if I want to glue that or not. Yeah, see, it's gonna pull it through no matter what I do. Then the big screwdriver, go to the center, hold down the surface. That should get you mechanically straight. And then I'm gonna just tighten this so it bites right there. Okay, just like that. All right, so then we'll go back into the sweep. I almost wonder if it's just the nature of the control. Like there's just more loading here. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like everything is pretty dang straight and true. And I don't feel like there's a lot of bending and deflection. Give them a super close-up shot of that. I feel like this would be twisting if we were actually loading because of our mechanism. Mm. I just don't see that. We definitely have no binding here. It looks really good. So there you have it, guys. I think that's what it's gonna be. I don't think we're gonna do any more on that one. We're just gonna put it to the center, leave it, unplug it, move on to the next one, and when we're done with all of them, we'll show you what it looks like. We'll come right back. All right, so all 4 servos are installed, control horns installed, wires pulled through. Everything is done on this wing with the exception of joining them together. Same thing here. Everything has been mechanically centered as best as we can. Given the circumstances, you'll note that this one's maybe not totally perfect here. See that? I don't know if that's an issue yet. Same thing here. See how we've got a little bit of a droop here, okay? I don't know if we're gonna be able to center that or if we'll have to split the difference or what. At this point, I'm not super worried about it. I'm just gonna go with it and just hope it's not a big issue. That comes from the cuts on the paper hinges, also known as Ca hinges. So the paper hinges that they call them in dancing nomenclature are these things, okay? We call them Ca hinges. So the next step is to take the joiner, the wing spar. We're gonna run it through this hole. Goodness gracious, why is it so hard to get in there? It's a good fit. I guess I'd prefer it to be tight as opposed to loose. I'm just afraid I'm not gonna know when I bottom out. Because the strength it takes to push it through is enough that you could easily break one of the ribs. And I have no idea what half is. I should have marked half. That would have been smart. Mark half when you do it. Okay, so wires out of the way. That's why you have to go through that little exit hole that wasn't cut on mine. And then this is gonna slide into that. This is gonna slide into that pin. Now, I don't know if it needs to be glued or anything. Did the diagram or did the directions?
It does not specify glue.
Okay, so I'm gonna not glue it just so it's removable. That's a scary feeling. You're putting a lot of pressure on this wing to get that through. I mean, it feels like there's a lot of strength there, but sometimes when you think it's strong, that's about the time it breaks. And it breaks back here, so it's really hard to fix. So take your time, do it carefully. I'm gonna go all the way down like that. See, I'm not pushed in. Then I'm gonna back it off. Now I have to somehow try to get this to still force forward. Okay, so that's in the hole. There we go, guys. Okay, so it's in. Oh yeah. That's a really light wing, okay? It's not nothing, but it's very light, okay? Very light with a substantial amount of lift being created, okay? So super excited to see this thing fly. The wing is done. So what's next, camera crew?
Well, we need to install those 2 little black, like, keeper pegs.
These things?
Yes.
Okay.
Locking tips.
Okay.
I liked mine better. And those are supposed to be glued in.
Right, because they help hold the front edge of the wing in. So let's dry fit one just to see how it fits. Okay, so that goes all the way, how deep?
That deep.
Is it really that specific?
That's all it says.
Okay, let's look at the fuse. The fuse has holes here, okay? The holes are a pass-through design. See that? So this thing is gonna go in here. You don't want it to go forever through. But let's say that it was super, super long, like you had tons of excess. Then it's gonna have to go at a certain angle. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dry fit these into the wing. There's kind of a point where you feel a little bit of resistance. You would think that's where you stop, but I don't know that. Okay, and then let's go ahead and carefully lay this in and see how it fits. This one would need to go back just a hair. This one we need to go back just a hair. Okay, I feel like that's pretty good. That's a pretty good fit. Let's see if the back drops down. It does, and it causes a little crease there too, until it's all the way seated. That's pretty dang good fit. That's pretty dang good fit. I feel like we could easily be a couple millimeters forward of that if you want to look. You see what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. But I'm satisfied with the way it is. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and pull this out by lifting up on the trailing edge of the wing and then sliding it out. Those things can be longer. I wanna see if I can get a little bit longer, about double the length. Yeah, see, then I feel like I popped out. So I already know that'll work, so I'm gonna do that. So we'll just lay the fuse out of the way. Drop that back on. And I think what I'm gonna do, rather than mark them, because it's always hard to mark carbon fiber and get a good mark, I'm gonna just stick one in with glue. And then I'm gonna do one without, I'll just leave it. And then when I go in to replicate the other side, the other one will be glued. Okay, so pretty good amount of CA there. Okay, actually gonna spread this. You could use epoxy if you were concerned. A lot of you guys like using epoxy on your models. There's nothing wrong with that. It is a little bit heavier, takes a little bit longer. It's definitely give you more strength, but I can tell you this from experience. The things that break on my models are not because I C8'd it, it's because I crashed it. And that's the God's honest truth. Okay, so now we can tell that that is, you know, within millimeter or so. Now I can just replicate that real easy. So we'll go for like a bead all the way along the top. Now this is gap filling medium CA. Okay. So I'll take and spread that out again, just kind of coat the whole surface. Give it a little bit of room. You don't want to make it so sloppy that when you slide it in there, it just all comes off on the wing and makes a big mess. There's a time or place for that, but now is not it. So now I'm going to spin this. Just spin it around to make sure I get that glue spread onto the different surfaces. Kind of same thing here. And then I'm going to just take the clean side. That's not clean. Take the clean side, a new one. Q-tips, you always have to have Q-tips when you're building a Dancing Wings hobby plane. Or any plane if you're me. Okay, I feel like that's a good amount of exit. All right, so the wing is technically at this point, I believe it's done, okay? So that's pretty cool, so the wing is done. So we can lay this out of the way for now. We'll just kind of put it over here next to this other gorgeous plane. Just let that chill. All right, so what are we gonna do next now, camera crew, according to the instructions?
Step 2.
Step 2, oh, we're on step 2. Okay, so we're like 2 hours into the build. Step 2.
Okay, step 2. We're gonna do the tail. So it says glue in the paper hinges, which ours are already glued in. So we need to
one
put,
half.
Well, yeah, it says to put it in.
So you're saying the horizontal stabilizer in the elevator?
Yep, but we need to put in that little U-shaped steel rod that I set over there by the servos. Yes.
Okay.
That goes in first. Then we're gonna put the hinges in.
Okay, so what you're saying is there's an up and a down, so we need to establish that. That is up, that is down, okay? Agreed?
Okay.
So we've established that. All right, so now the first step is this thing needs to be installed here, you say? Okay, so let's see if that feeds through. It does. Let's see if this feeds through, and I believe it will. Okay, so there's some imperfections here, as you can see. A little bit of springiness, a little bit of imperfection. So obviously we want to try to correct as much of that before we have it glued in there as we can. So I'm going to use probably lineman pliers on this. Lineman's pliers. Linesman pliers. Lineman's pliers.
Don't know the correct.
Whichever, yeah, possessive part of speech. Is it two linemen that share the pliers, or is it one lineman that possesses the pliers? I don't know. That's obviously not good enough. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm just gonna slowly work until they're square. Again, this is like one of those things where it's like, why did they not just get them square at the factory? Mm-hmm. It's kind of a weird question. I shouldn't have to ask. Yeah. Well, I say that, but then it's like, okay, all these steps that seem so easy, then you try to do it, Brian. Well, I don't want to do it. I want the Chinese person that's really, really, really good at this to do it. See that? Okay. So I need to come in quite a little bit more here. And quite a little bit down. And I'm going to break that if I try to do it while it's in there. So now it's going to be the linesman's pliers times 2. Okay. Doesn't seem like I did much, I'm sure. Probably because I didn't do much. If you overdo it, you just make it a lot harder on yourself. Wow. We're getting closer. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's not appropriate at all. It needs to be square. So I need to bring this down even more. Okay, just a little bit more that time. And this is just literal guess and check until it is the way it needs to be. Because if you figure out a faster way to do it, then good on you. Okay, so we're not quite square lengthwise, which we do need to correct. I'm gonna hold this hard. Not enough. Not even anywhere near enough. Oh no, I'm gonna have to hold it way back on the other side. And just basically work back and forth until it's straight when it's all glued together. A little bit at a time. Straight, getting close. Getting better, getting a lot better. So now I need to actually try to bring this surface down, which is a little bit more challenging because I have to try to brace it here, but I also don't need as much. So I'm just gonna do a little teeny bit. That was probably too much. Probably way too much. Yeah, that was way too much. See, I've got it straight now, but I've screwed up this axis. So now I need to take and either, I'm gonna have to take it out, and then I have to go like that. Now, if you don't want to use lineman pliers, you can also use a crescent wrench, which is nice, because you can open that up and then just bite it in there, which holds it. And then just a little bit, just a little bit. I mean, it doesn't take much. You have to make the sound effects or it won't work, obviously.
That's not my problem.
So this still might be able to get like a little bit. Nah, I'm not even gonna try. I'm not breaking it. And once this gets done right, then you glue it. You don't mess around. You get it glued and you get on to the next step. Try not to undermine your other steps that you've done along the way to get this thing exactly where it needs to be. Okay. Ooh, that's looking close. Jeez, just a little teeny bit. This is where you gotta be nitpicky. And if you're not nitpicky, your plane's gonna fly like crap. And so if you're watching this video still and you're like, but Brian, I'd like to start with that plane. Just do yourself a favor. I'm gonna remind you again, don't.
Still don't.
Start with one that's easier. This one's taking a little bit of skill to put together. And it's still not like a hard plane, but there's just a lot of things that have to be right. And you miss like one or two of them, it's gonna fly like crap. Boy, that's weird. It seems like it's worse than it was. Mm-hmm. What did I do?
I don't know. I was gonna say I liked it better before.
It was better before. I don't know what I did wrong. Subtle changes. Okay. So again, this is like one blip in the manual, but it'll take you 30 minutes. Ooh.
Ooh, that's pretty good.
That is like probably as good as you're going to be able to get it, I'm guessing. Because let's go ahead and just take our lineman group of linemen's shared pliers. Let's lay it flat on the surface. Ah, very nice. It's very nice. And then we take this and we put it here. See this? There's one other issue. When I glue this, I got to make sure to get penetration here so that that pulls everything true. You see this gap? How this gap is larger than here? See if I can get that square. Okay, so that's pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. I don't think there's a whole lot better I can do on that. So at this point, it's time to glue. So I'm only gonna take one side out at a time. Now this is the type of thing that I wanna do on a surface that I can get a little bit of glue on. So I'm gonna put it back on top of here, but when I'm done and ready to test it, I'm gonna test it on the hard surface. This is where it comes in handy using something like granite as a backdrop in your kitchen. But for most of you, that would cause you to die, so don't do that. I'm in a unique circumstance.
You also don't have space in the fridge for glue, so that's where the line has been drawn.
Yeah, but if I needed space, you'd let me use it. Okay, so I'm gonna press here and press here. See how it slipped in? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna take and glue on top as well. Now I'm gonna take old trusty, wipe off the excess, throw it away. Now I'm gonna recheck, flat. Okay, now at this point, this is when you can really get yourself in trouble if you aren't actually ready for this step, okay? So I'm gonna kicker this. Okay, so we're just gonna run that kicker up and down the joint. Let that do its thing. It still smells strong. That means it's still working chemically. Run my finger along there, make sure it's dry. Now I'm gonna put it back on the surface, make sure we're good. And then I'm gonna come back and do the other side here. Now that that's set up, doesn't feel like it's gonna easily pull out. So I should be able to brace here and walk it out. Now, why am I applying the glue to the crack in the hole rather than to the piece, camera crew?
Better coverage, less mess.
It's gonna get pushed out if I put it on here anyway. Okay, so now I need to push here as I get penetration and then rock it in. Got pooped out. See that? See, I'm just letting that drip right back down, you see? I just chased the drip, and now it's coming back out this side. Okay. So now I'm gonna quickly wipe this to make sure that it's not everywhere. Lay it flat again. Okay. I'm very comfortable with the way that looks, so I'm gonna go glue on top of it again. Now that we're glued on top, we'll just kicker it, starting here, working our way back. And then I'm actually gonna do the same thing again over here. This would be what I would consider to be a critical control point. If you get this wrong, you're gonna crash your plane. It's not really that hard to get it right, but the thing is, like, it is just a patience thing, which I don't have much of. Okay. See, and even after all that, we've still got a little bit of a twist in this because of the way this glue's set up. So now it's flat. Take the dry side of it and wipe off the excess. Clean finger test. Okay, clean finger test. That's fine. That's fine. Might need to give it just a little tweak at some point. I think it's good enough for what we're doing. I feel like the airplane's gonna be nice and true now because of that. All right, so what's the next step? We gotta glue this?
Yep.
Okay, so for that, I'm gonna just make sure we're dry. We don't have CA everywhere. All right, so the next step is to glue these CA paper hinges, as they call it in the manual. So we'll just let you guys watch this process. Just kind of take one edge, walk it in, work it back and forth a little bit. See that? Just one edge at a time until the next thing you know, it's all the way in. This one's the next lowest one, which is kind of weird. And then this one here, I gotta kind of move the control surface to get the alignment. Oh, you son of a biscuit lover. There it is. There it is. See this? There it is. Okay, so we're gonna push that all the way in, which it won't go, just so you know. That's okay. And then I'm gonna work it. It's gonna sound really nasty, and that's okay. Trying to do it on an even basis. It's wanting to undo this side more than this side. So I'm gonna walk this out with my thumb. And then pull this back in just a little bit with my forefingers. Okay. Just walking that surface. I think that gap is pretty good and even. I like that gap. That gap is enough. Look how straight that is. That's really good. We got that one good.
It is.
Okay, so we'll just lay this flat on the surface and make sure that we're 100% satisfied with all that. I'm currently not. I want to go just a little bit more. So you see how I use a screwdriver? I'm trying to get an even gap. That gap is larger than it should be, just so you know. So I'm going to try to even it up a little bit. Then I'm going to try moving it. Oh yeah. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to pretend this is mounted to the plane here, and I'm going to move. Do I have good even movement? Does it wiggle the horizontal stabilizer? Doesn't feel like it is. So I think we're good. I feel like this side just needs a little bit more gap. So if you look down this length, you can see what I'm looking for. See that gap now? That gap looks about even. This one's a little bit wider here. And I think we noticed that when we were doing our steel rod. But I'm satisfied with that. So now the next thing is to take the thin CA, and we're gonna run that into the hinges, the paper hinges. And just let the capillary effect work. Should suck that glue down in there. And we're gonna let that kind of work in a little bit. Just give it a couple of quick rocks. Then we're going to flip over the elevator and horizontal stabilizer. Just go a little teeny bit on the other side as well. If it's working the way it should, you shouldn't even have to do both sides, but I've always done both sides whenever I'm the one that's responsible for gluing it. Okay, we're just gonna let that set. Now the glue, we want to give it every chance it can have to go in there and capillary in so we get a good bond. So we're just gonna like let that sit for a minute. If the glue would catch some of the fibers of the, you know, cardboard, it would be fine. I don't really see it being a big issue. It should pop right off of there. All right, so what do we have here? What's our next step?
We're gonna put that onto the fuse, the tail.
With screws?
With screws.
Okay.
And we need to figure out which screws those are.
Why don't you throw me that thing quick? Okay, so as you can see, there's 4 holes here. These screws go with control horns rather. So we're gonna keep those separate. I love that there's 4 screws on this.
Yeah.
Do we have a bag of just screws?
Yes, that's the miscellaneous hardware. So it's gotta be in that set.
I don't know. I don't think so. This is the motor mount. It's obviously motor mounty stuff. This is Velcro. This is the wing connection part here. Okay. This is the 4 screws that would hold on the landing gear. I'm gonna assume they go there. This is God knows what.
For the wheels on the landing gear. That's what holds the wheels on.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So yeah, that's for wheels. Wheel pants. That's that stuff. This is that stuff. This is just electronic stuff, obviously. This is definitely landing gear stuff. This is definitely wing stuff.
So dump that bag out.
So this is the only bag it could be then?
Yes.
Hypothetically, right?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna look in this real quick and... Those screws, yeah, not looking real promising. Almost looks like we need to use those screws because we're gonna need to have 3 times 2 would be 6 for the 2 control horns remaining. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7, 8.
So that's what I was trying to process of eliminate earlier.
Let's open this. So this is obviously not it.
That's for the landing gear, I believe.
That go to the plane.
From the aluminum bracket, yes. I think.
I don't disagree at all. That is correct. So those can be put with the landing gear. So let's do that.
Okay. Then like the 2 white nylon screws are obviously not
For the wing.
Yep.
Yep. So that goes with the wing stuff.
There's that little white.
That white thing
bracket.
in the Velcro bag.
Yep.
See, this is when it starts getting fun because like everything starts coming together all at once. I.e., you can see the light at the end of the tunnel if you're me, and if you're my wife, you're still
So your
very concerned
definition
about
of fun
another
is
475
not the same.
steps.
Yeah.
Here to come. I look at this as this is a relatively easy build for a dancing wings.
So then we have 2 more control horn things.
Which go with this.
Yep.
Okay, so that's pretty obvious. Then there's these recessed. Like, why do we have these?
Yeah, that I'm not sure.
I have no clue what those are for.
That's like a self-tapping screw and spacer is what it says here, but I have no idea what that would be.
I have no idea what they're talking about. There's 5 screws. Oh, there's 4 of these.
Yep.
Ooh.
But there's 4 of the other thing too.
Yeah, but just listen for a sec. When we put that thing on, that's the bottom of the plane. That's a pretty big screw, but it looks like it could be about right. See? That might be right. But then they also have provided 4 of these.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, crap, which one is it?
Are those both self-tapping screws?
This is more directly what they've described here.
Well, there's 4 of those, right?
I understand. But what I'm saying is these are going to give us a flat finish, but they're going to bite into the wing. And it feels like we're in solid wood there. So I feel like you could go either way with it. That's a tough call.
And I can't figure out where the other ones...
Where would these ever go?
Oh, wait.
No.
No, those are with the gear already.
I don't see any spot where that makes sense. Unless it's motor mount stuff. Hey, motor mounts. Motor mounts, maybe. I'm putting them with the motor mounts.
Okay.
We'll be able to get to this.
Yeah. That's what I was just going to say.
Okay, so where did I put the last of the 4? Oh, they're in my hand, all of them. So let's do this. So we're not gluing this? We're just putting it in there, huh?
Just a screw.
See this? I need to notch it out to fit that block because I evidently made that a little bit too far out. You see what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a huge issue. Gosh, we're gonna have to like slide some of this crap down to make more room. Trying to decide if I'm gonna leave that there because it might actually reinforce everything nicely. I'm just gonna leave it.
Looks like you still plenty of movement, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit of resistance that's coming from that. You see that mark right there? Mm-hmm. That's from me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna try this instead. I'm gonna just grab the tail of the plane and just pull up on the screwdriver. See what I did? Mm-hmm. Just making a relief. So we'll see how that goes. All right. Oh yeah, way better. That's way better. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Brian Phillips RC, by now you should be. If you're watching this video, you like the long format or you wouldn't be watching it. Long format meaning we show pretty much the entire process. Even in this video, we aren't showing the entire process just because we have limits on YouTube in terms of the length of the video. It can either be 12 hours long or 240 gigabytes. Is that what it was? Or 400 gigabytes.
I can't remember now.
400 gigabytes. That was...
Yes, we know that because...
Because we've had bigger than that. We don't like breaking up videos if we can avoid it, especially on the Unbox Built Radio setup. So what we try to do is we try to showcase the entire process in a way that will show each step that's necessary so you guys can get a plane, make a good decision. You don't have to necessarily go to 4 or 5 different videos to make that decision. We try to keep them somewhat reasonable. But by normal YouTube standards, our videos are terribly long. And that's just because what we do is pretty tedious. We hope you enjoy watching us go through the tedious steps because we don't really like filming the tedious part. The tedious part is the hardest part for us to film. And it's also, I would say it's probably like one of the few public service things we do as part of the channel for the people that are in the hobby. So we hope you guys like it, and we know a lot of you guys aren't going to watch the whole thing, and that's okay. We get it. Everybody has stuff going on. So do we. Our stuff going on just happens to be like 4 other planes that want to get built. We suspect a lot of you guys are in the same boat. So this would be a great rainy day project, and to be honest with you, it's a single rainy day project, which is nice. That's a lot better than some planes we've done in the past. In fact, the dancing wings we did last time took us, what, 24 hours of build time, something like that?
Something like that.
And then it just didn't really turn out as good as we had hoped. This one here, I'm expecting very good things. Everything about it screams high quality, gonna be good. Now listen, I'm gonna line these holes with CA, But in order to do it right, I have to start each and every screw, put it in, and then back it back out, okay? I'm looking at two different measurements here. I'm looking at this gap, I'm looking at this gap, and I'm looking at these gaps. And I'm making sure that I don't get myself in a weird bind, okay? Many of you would say you need to mount the wings and measure from the wing tip to here and so on and so forth. Okay. If that's important to you, please do that. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. I would encourage you to do that. Right? Is that the easy way to say that?
As long as we don't have to do that.
I'm not doing that.
Okay, good.
Are you
Then
kidding
yes,
me?
they can totally do that if they want to.
If my wings are out of true, it's just going to fly left or right. I say that jokingly, folks. I just trust the pre-drilled holes on this particular model, which is probably a foolish thing to do. And these screws are the worst ones in the kit so far. I can't hardly get them to purchase. I need to go to a China screwdriver instead of this other slightly more expensive Chinese screwdriver to see if I can get it out. This one's not removing for me. Yeah, that one's working.
Well, and if you only, buy and build a few planes a year or something, then like spending a weekend or a couple weekends on something like this doesn't seem out of the realm of normal to me.
Especially if you have winter. See, if you're in California or, a place where you don't really have the four seasons and you're flying all year round, first of all, I'm jealous. Well, we fly all year round anyway. We just don't do it in a comfortable environment.
Miserable.
We just do it when it's like minus 20 out. Partly because of the channel, but partly because I'm diehard.
Yes.
But the thing is, if you're in an environment where you don't have the four seasons, then you're going to be more inclined to want to keep flying all the time. But also there's something about scarcity that drives demand. And when the weather's crappy, it just really helps you to appreciate nice weather. Like right now, you look outside and you're like, man, that's beautiful out there. It is. But it's not like this all the time. And it also causes other side effects for everybody that lives around this stuff. And we call them seasonal allergies. I'm just getting done with hives. Yay. My wife is about to get them. Yay for her. Everybody's super excited. Hopefully the kids don't. But it's nothing that modern medicine can't heal. Or not.
Except that it doesn't really.
Might help you get through it though.
Yep.
So that being said, as we struggle with those stupid details of life, okay, that looks pretty good. Now the glue again is not gluing the wing on, it's just gluing the pocket of the screw that goes into the balsa wood. And then that's just gonna give you a little bit of retention, strength. It might kind of hold the screw in there a little bit. It's like Loctite. All right, so we have our tail on there. That looks sweet. By the way, this thing is very light, which is awesome. And then very good motion, love it. What's next?
Rudder?
Vertical stabilizer.
Yep.
Vertical stabilizer. Now, let's talk for a minute about the vertical stabilizer. It is currently stuck together. Comes out real easy, no problem. Then this thing is going to glue into here. And they're saying to use a square or whatever to line everything up.
We just use our eyeballs.
You want to use my balls? Eyeballs?
Yes, your eyeballs.
Okay. That looks like it's pretty dang close to square.
Yes.
It's maybe not perfect though, but the thing I'm thinking is like, okay, so if I try to put that in there and it's not square, I don't really suspect I'm going to have a whole lot of...
No, yeah, what are you going to do
Like,
about
what am I
it?
going to do? Like, hold it while it dries? I don't know. I don't really see a lot of... I don't know. I could take this and try to like sand the front edge a little bit. Feels like it's just a little bit twisted. Let's check. See, it's kind of, see, that would be more square. But I still feel like the 90-degree part is pretty good. What do you think? Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna push it and see if it does anything. I don't know. I don't know. It's pretty dang close. It looks really close. I'm just gonna make sure this is slid all the way back, right? And I'm not skipping any steps, right?
Nope, that would be next.
Okay. Let's get the tip all slathered and sticky stuff and then ram it in. I should ram it in and then make the sticky stuff come. Otherwise it'll make a huge mess on the way in, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm just running CA. This is the medium thick CA. And I don't think the penetration goes all the way to the bottom. So it's just gonna be whatever I get in there. I'm not really worried about this thing staying in there. It's got a pretty tight pressure fit to it anyway. So I'm just gonna slough it in there. Oh yeah, right there. Then slide it back so that this surface is flush with the tail, okay? That part is pretty important. Okay, so now while that's kind of setting up, I'm gonna just kind of favor it slightly. I don't really even think it matters. I think we're good. I'm not gonna mess with it. I'm just gonna go a little bit heavy on this right here along the seam. You guys have seen me do that before and you probably cringe because it is kind of an uggo way of doing it. But I just like having glue along the seam. I know it's not really probably supposed to be glued there, but I don't care. I'm gluing it anyway. It's just that get out of jail free card, meaning I really screwed the pooch and did something stupid. It's gonna give you just a little bit more holding pressure before that thing breaks free. Okay. I'm just gonna let that work. Now that you could probably square up a little bit if you wanted to. You know what I really need right now? I need a Q-tip.
We're running low on those.
Seriously?
We only have like, I don't know, 6,000 or 7,000 of them.
Oh, jeez. Should run at the store. We should stop this video quick. Could be an emergency.
Can we?
Got some good stuff there. Now, just a little bit of kicker. A little bit of kicker. All right, so the next step, of course, is going to be to put this part on, the rudder.
And we got to get that tail assembly.
Can you slide that cardboard toward me?
Toward you?
Lengthwise?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to just go like this.
Okay.
So the glue doesn't get off onto the countertop. All right, so we have to assemble the tail wheel tail dragger assembly. So that's this thing. And we need, of course, the rudder assembly. Let's go ahead and put this together now. So let's open this up. We already opened it earlier. I got a few screws, 4 screws to be exact. Got a collar here. Okay, so they show the wheel being off. One thing I'm going to talk about right now is you want this thing to be 90 degrees of that thing, okay? So right now we're close, but no cigar. I don't know if that's going to be a problem or not. Let's go ahead and tighten this collar on here. I suspect that's 2 millimeters, but it might be 1.5. Yeah, 1.5. Okay, so remember this, I want to be pointed down so I can get, well, how about from the back? Okay. Doesn't seem to spin very free, but it'll be fine when it's got a little weight on it. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. If this is square here, then that needs to be square, and it's not. It's pointed like this instead of like this. So this would be a good time to kind of play with that, try to get that even. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take, I'm gonna cap off my glue because I don't wanna let that dry. I'm gonna take my linesman's pliers. Okay. Then I'm going to take this. Yeah, I need to go like that. So what I'll do is I'll hold this right here. And then I can just see if it'll let me bend. Down and away. Ooh, that's going to hurt. Okay, so back to step one. Undo this, because that didn't help. I thought maybe I'd have better purchase, but I didn't. See, this needs to pull back quite a bit and then down a little bit, because I'm just using this as a square, okay? So that's the way it's gonna be once it's mounted on the plane. It's gonna be like this, but I can hold this out here and get the same effect. In fact, I could bring that all the way down, but I just need something to brace that on. So I'm bracing it on the edge of the counter. See how that works? Then I'm gonna try to pull that down and over. So let's see if we can somehow brace this all. Brace it here so I can bend it down. So brace it like this. See how we look. Pretty close. See, now look at the wheel. Compared to the length of the counter. Watch this. Does that look square now with the...
It's better.
I can't say it's perfect because I can't, easily test that. But I can have a little bit of slop here, but I can't have a lot of slop here. That'll track the plane off. And it's a lot easier to do that here where you've got straight edges and stuff and linemen's pliers.
Yeah.
All right, so since I've got this handy, I'm just gonna go ahead and put that on now. Now that we've kind of squared everything up. And just to be clear, you don't have to do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Just one little drip of CA. Remember, you don't want to go like crazy overboard with that. If you glue the whole thread set in there, you probably have a hard time getting it out. So just a little bit. That's all it takes. Be surprised how much that helps. And so it doesn't like chill too long, we'll just do a little kicker. Dry the kicker, keep it away from the foam. That'll react funny with the foam sometimes. The soft foam, not regular foam. Or EPP or EPO, like what we're used to for the bodies of the planes. It's that weird soft foam. I don't know what they call this kind of foam. All right, so now we need to assemble this into the tail fixture, right? We have 4 screws here. I don't want to mix them up with those, but they do look the same. What now? What? This isn't bent right. I did that wrong, didn't I? Hold on. Did I? That thing should be going the other way. Oh, wait. Wait a second. This is the rudder. Oh, no, it's going the right way. Sorry. Whew. Made me nervous there for a second. I thought I had that backward. God, look at that. Look how messed up that is. Not even remotely straight. So after all that work I just did, I'm gonna still have to re-bend everything to try to get everything square. because they've got this thing going in like this instead of like this.
Yeah.
I could just drill another hole. I'm just trying to decide, would it be easier to just drill another hole? It's probably easier to drill another hole.
Probably.
In this case, normally I wouldn't do that, but it's just so egregiously wrong. I'm just afraid I'm gonna miss material then. Well, that's pretty close. I think I'm gonna go to 5/64 just to be down the same size. Okay. Okay, so the whole alignment is fine. It's just like the entry point's fine. It's just, I need to go straight. Let's see if we can get that in there straight now. Nice fit.
Ooh, that's a lot better.
A lot better. Oh yeah, that's really good. Okay. So that'll be, you guys see what I was doing there earlier now? So now I want to see if I can verify everything's square before I glue it. I'm gonna go ahead and glue it. I think we're good. Right? We should be good to go.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so we're gonna pull this out. I guess honestly, you wouldn't have to glue it, but about the time you don't, you're gonna get burned. Something stupid will happen.
If you couldn't get that piece back out very easily, could you glue like over the top of it, kind of?
Yeah, you could do that. That would be fine. I think that'd be good too. I think it would be. There's gonna be some difference of opinions on these things, I'm sure.
Sure.
Like whatever I say, somebody's gonna think it's wrong. But that's fine. I'm not some expert builder or anything on this stuff. I just kind of do it. I just kind of do it and film it.
Because it's super easy.
These builds are not that hard. They're just a lot of steps, to be honest. Most of them are pretty easy steps. This one's been a lot easier than the other dancing wings. I mean, to be honest, it's not that, I mean, we're not that far from being to a plug and fly.
We're still only on step 2. Not that far from a plug and fly.
What I mean is that the work we've already done has put us in a position to where we're closer to a plug and fly than we were when we started. We've got a lot of work done. Look at the piece count. Look at that on the desk or on the counter there. You can't tell me we're not mostly done with this, because look at all the pieces. And the pieces that are left are getting simpler and simpler. To be honest, the wing took a lot of work. I didn't think the wing was going to be that big of a deal. I kind of assumed they would have had that done for us. Like those connection points on the wing. Just, that's the sort of thing, I don't know. We're just so spoiled now with so much of the work is done for us that it's really, we're really spoiled, really, basically, is the only way to put it. But I mean, look at this. It's kind of like a rainy day and everything. It's kind of a good rainy day project, I think. All right, so now that that's glued, I'm gonna let that rest for just a quick second so the kicker can work. Obviously, we don't want to have that pop out while we're trying to do the next step. So we'll pop out this drill bit, just kind of let it sit for a second. I don't think we need the control rods in yet. The control rods haven't even been mentioned yet. So we should be okay. We're still good. Everything seems to be free. So I think at this point, we're gonna go ahead and start the next step, which is mounting this. Just gonna line up those 2 slots, the paper hinges as they like to call them. Go till it's about what you would like your flush finishes to look like, nice even gaps. Jeez, that was waiting for the catch. That was easier than I thought. Okay, camera crew, let's give them a shot of this. So now upside down, you can see this is going to receive the screws here just fine. I feel like we screw that in first.
Before you do the CA hinges?
Yeah, because then we can work it in and out a little bit if we need to.
Okay.
So I'm going to just move this to see if we have enough play. Oh yeah, that's more than we need, so that's perfect. So let's go ahead and see if we've got it straight here. And we are really dang close. I would say we're good. Let's just go ahead and put in the screws.
Okay. So those are the 4 screws that were in that separate little bag, right?
Yeah, and they look about the same as the drawing. So I'm going to take the one that looks the most correct offhand, and I'm going to start it. Then I'm going to take and get good purchase all the way down in there. Then I'm going to make sure the second one is nice and square. So I'm going to tighten this until it's held, with the understanding we have to go back through and CA them. So I'll do the diagonals first. Okay. I'll get that here in a sec. Okay, just letting that bite down in.
So we haven't pre-drilled anything yet.
Nothing.
For that one rudder hole, just because it was misaligned.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody's going to have that issue. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and just throw caution to the wind. I'm just going to glue this. Put a little glue on the shaft. Push it in. Get a bite. Turn. I don't want to do 2 steps on this one, and I don't want to do 2 steps on the other opposite one because everything is braced, it's held together, so it should be fine. Okay, I do want some strength on this joint, this particular spot. Okay. Just back it right back off. Just holding it with my fingertip. Run glue down the length. Really only need the tip, but I want a little bit more glue this time, like a little excess. Can you hold that with one hand, please? The fuse? Thank you. Good job. That helped a lot. See, that's just spinning free now that it's in, so I'm glad I glued it. Okay, so now this one, I'm going to do the same thing. Let me try the other method. Put glue down the side, set it back in the hole. You got a hold of it. Okay, just letting it walk in, walking it out to try to suck some more of that glue into the threads. This one's biting good. This particular screw. I don't know why that one didn't bite. I'm still trying to figure that out. Doesn't make sense to me why that one, it's like it didn't have any purchase at all. Got to get a Q-tip and take some of that excess glue. If you get glue that goes around the head of your screw, try to clean that off, because I mean, you do want to be able to undo the screw potentially. So is this one? This one?
That one, yeah, needs to be glued still.
Yeah, it felt like this one just didn't have any purchase at all. Like it was just too soft or something. I don't know what the deal was. I do not like CA all over my fingers. Been there, done that. Gets old. If you do get CA on your fingers, borrow your wife's nail polish remover, or yours, whatever. It will take that stuff off. Acetone works for that. Okay, so now we can move this. Very good clearance, very good free movement. Have no problems at all with that. That's awesome. We don't always have that, by the way.
No.
Love it. Checking the clearance here as we move. No slop. Everything looks good. Checking the gaps now. This is the last gap measurement right here. I'm looking at the gap here compared to here, and then the gap compared to here compared to here. Everything looks solid. I'm ready to glue that.
Okay.
So that's going to be the thin CA, not the medium CA. So I'm going to jump back over to thin CA. We do have links to this stuff, not this exact item. Probably that's the sort of stuff you don't want to spill in your kitchen because it's going to make a mess. But fortunately, I didn't get that much on everything. I just got a couple of drips. But yeah, if you guys, this Bob Smith Industry stuff is the stuff I've used in the past, and I've had pretty good luck with it. By the way, if you did spill that on your floor, you could use acetone to clean it depending on the type of flooring you have. It will take off the glue, but it might take off other stuff, so you just have to be careful about that. This is easy though, because there's only 2 spots to glue. So I'm just gonna come in here and let that wick. Let that wick, and then I'm gonna come back after it and just touch this top layer here just to get it out of the, I don't care if it's down there and I want it to work in, capillary in. This is just one of those things when you're building these model airplanes, if you try to do it without all the different types of glue, you're just gonna frustrate yourself. Trust me, I've tried at times. And then I've also tried with like old glue, and I've frustrated myself pretty bad on a few models because of that. So now what I want to do is I want to lay this down, let it have a few seconds to kind of set up, and just make sure everything still looks nice and straight. And let's give them a shot down the length of the plane there. See if you can line up with like the fridge or something so they've got a reference for squareness. Keep in mind, we didn't really do much with the squareness. Looks pretty good.
That looks really good.
I like it. Okay, so the next step would be, right?
Control rods, actually, I think.
Okay, control rods. So the control rods are next.
Yep.